So quickly, some housekeeping items. This session qualifies for 1.5 CEU crop management credits. So if you are looking to sign up for your credits, the sheets are up above at the back of the room. Secondly, please, can everybody kindly take out their phone and ensure that it is on vibrate or silent? I know we're all producers and probably have our phones set up to ring as loud as possible so we can hear them over equipment and doggers and whatnot. If you do have to take a call, I kindly ask that you go all the way out to the concourse, not just at the top of the theater, because we can still hear you. What else do we have? Yeah, CEU credits, that's wonderful. And yeah, I think we're going to be ready to be going here. Does everybody need to do a quick mic test, or does everybody have a mic?
Oh, who knows? Oh yeah, you can hear me good. Yeah.
Otherwise, what I can do is once we get going, I'll just pass this free mic. Okay?
I think I hear.
Okay. So, to get going, our first session this afternoon is a panel discussion. Our farmer panel is a conversation about farm profitability. I would like to introduce to you our panel. First off, we have our moderator, Whetter. Jay likes to be in a conversation that flows naturally and will happily scurry down any rabbit hole. He grew up in Chain Lakes on a farm near Dan, Manitoba, and has been a farm journalist since 1998. He started in radio, moved quickly to print, and then expanded to podcasting. He is the editor of Canola Digest magazine, coordinates the Canola Council of Canada's Canola Watch Agronomy updates, and is always on the lookout for innovations and ideas that might interest farmers. So we're very excited to have him moderating our panel this afternoon. I'll quickly introduce our panelists, and then I'll have Jay take it away.
Okay.
Firstly, Fiona Jochum. She's a third-generation grain farmer from St. Francis Xaviar, Manitoba, Blue Diamond Farms, where she co-manages the production of wheat, soybeans, oats, and canola with her cousin. Unlike most farmers, Fiona actually likes a day spent in the office crunching numbers, and off the farm she enjoys playing fiddle and downhill skiing. We also have Derkach. He lives at a farm near Russell, Manitoba, as a director representing the MCGA and the CCGA. Jay has a wonderful, caring, and hardworking wife, Jade, and 4 perfect children. I feel like someone may have wrote this for Jay. Jay keeps busy with his 3 boys enjoying hockey, golf, hunting, fishing, and his daughter Tori, who loves her dogs, volleyball, and snowboarding. We also have Kelsey Sunaert, who was born and raised in a cattle and grain farm near Deloraine, Manitoba, where he now lives with his wife and 2 young children. Together with his parents and family, he continues to operate the grain farm as accumulated 15 growing seasons under his belt for experience. He works towards finding a balance between profitability and sustainability, focusing on enhancing productive areas, managing for both wet and dry conditions, and restoring marginal areas back to their natural state. And last but not least, we have Ben Hamm. Ben's a farm management specialist with Manitoba Agriculture and is the lead for forage and livestock cost of production in Manitoba. He graduated with an animal science degree a million years ago with me from the U of M, and has been working with the Department of Agriculture for over 18 years. Ben he has a keen interest in analyzing risk management for the forage and livestock industries and how monitoring risk can cultivate a more prosperous ag industry. He also owns and operates a 250 cow herd in southwest Manitoba with his father and brothers. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Jay to moderate this session. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much. Hi everybody. How this is going to work, if you want to jump in with a question at any time, throw up your hand. And are you mic running for me? Or someone? Okay, and we'll try to get them, well, if there's a mic we can, or just shout it out and we'll repeat it so everybody can hear. And I can sort of see you because those lights are bright, but throw up a hand and we'll try to find you. I don't really want to do the Q&A at the end. We will maybe have some time at the end for Q&A. I'd rather have you just jump in because when an idea is fresh, or if we're talking about an idea, let's dig into that while we're at it. Okay, so the 4 of you. Oh, just a note on the profitability idea. Right after I did the farmer panel last year, I asked my panelists, I said, okay, that was good, what should we talk about next year? And one of them said we should talk about profitability. And then, I think we weren't anticipating Darren Bond's profitability outlook, but I did print out the 2 pages of his report that he just put out earlier this month. Darren will be talking about his profitability numbers tomorrow at 1 at the M&P Theater. So if you want more profitability, you can join him in that conversation tomorrow. Anyway, the only crop on this list that is profitable, based on Darren's numbers, is soybeans at a $2 profit per acre. And that's including all costs. Anyway, so for all four, we'll just go down the line. Maybe we'll start with you, Jay. Where is farm profitability going in general? Or where, are we trending up, down, sideways? And you can talk about your farm if you want to specifically, or just farm profits in general. What are your thoughts on where it's going?
Well, I tend to be more on the optimistic side. I think, just from recent memory of the last, there was a presentation done by Brittany from the CCGA, and she, speaking specifically canola, and maybe not necessarily whole farm, but there's a lot of optimism in the future. I know it's looked bleak for the last year or so, but what I see is that the Canadian marketplace and the farmers in Canada right now are basically getting, they're moving through the challenges. They're seeing that there's some positivity and some optimism with some maybe more domestic use of canola for that sense, and I think profitability is maybe an optimistic thing. That's kind of the direction I'm looking at.
Is it different this year? Like every year, farmers are notoriously optimistic. That's what keeps them going. But is this year different than other years? Do you feel even more optimism than usual?
Well, no, I think that is generally what farmers are, is optimistic, but I'm just, I guess, being more involved in the canola side of things, and coming from that lens, I'm just seeing how there's just a lot of people working hard behind the scenes, and there's results that are 2 years in the making. I think are going to start showing up really, really quickly. I mean, with that side of things.
Yeah, right on. Thanks, Jay. Fiona, are you optimistic, or where's profitability going in general from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's tough to predict what the future holds. When I look back historically across our farm, from my perspective, which isn't very long, but whatever, the profitability is pretty volatile. But the way I look at it is, if it's in the positive, I'm good. I would love to get a home run all the time, but that's not an honest goal to have, or a realistic goal to have. So just, if my retained earnings just keep going up, then I'm happy. And I think I can echo what Jay said, that I'm optimistic as well. It doesn't mean every year is going to be amazing, and there's always going to be some crops that maybe don't do as well as others, but yeah, I think that with the new technology that's coming out, with seed genetics, it's just things are always getting better, and we'll figure out a way to make it work.
So what we hear, though, is that margins keep getting tighter and tighter. But is that just something that farmers now accept and manage around, and so it's not really something that influences your optimism?
Yeah, ever since I really got more involved in the ag industry, and since university, so that would have been back in 2012, everyone was always like, oh, margins are so tight, Fiona, we're heading into some bad times, like farming is gonna be bad. You're gonna be losing money, like I don't know how you're gonna do it. Yeah. Just wait, next year's gonna be the bad year. And I'm like, I don't know, it seems to be working out still. So, and maybe that's just the side of keeping us on our toes of, okay, it's like a little bit of a risk analysis that you're gonna take. You don't wanna be too optimistic, because then you don't have a backup plan or whatever. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah,
margins are tight, but as long as they're positive, you're good to go.
Yeah, good, right on. How about you, Kelsey? Have you got a mic? Oh, we're sharing one? Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with Fiona and Jay there that, as producers, we're gonna see tough times, and margins are gonna get tight, but farmers are smart, and we can innovate, and we specialize, and we do what it takes to put ourselves in the right position. So I think like Fiona was saying, I think, you know, continue on the path, and we'll figure it out as we go.
And do you need to continue on the path, like, I mean, the path of continuous improvement, or like if you didn't come to Ag Days and learn about new practices and just kept the same all the time, would you be okay?
I think you can sustain, but yeah, my belief is that as most farmers want to improve and make things better, and just people in general want to do that.
Right on. Ben?
Yeah, I'm going to speak on the cattle industry, and if I could steal your sports analogy, the cattle industry has hit a home run, and with that a grand slam this year. So there are some challenges with that, and it's not all roses in the cattle industry. If it was, we'd see tremendous amount of growth, and we're not seeing that. There's still some severe challenges. It takes a lot to get into the industry. Capital, labor seems to be a big issue across all of Canada and across the world. So there are some real challenges. Sure, we're profitable at this time. The profitability, though, this year is extreme. We're seeing $1,000 to $2,000 of profit per cow this year. We're seeing dollars like $350 to $400 profit per acre. Numbers we've never seen ever in our lifetimes. And with that will come challenges. It's year end now, and hopefully everyone's thought of the tax challenges that are going to come along with that. So that's another liability, if not thought through, something that's going to be there very shortly.
We're going to get into this a little bit more, Ben, but when you say not all roses, what are some of the biggest challenges then? You've talked about cost of entry, but what about people that are already in?
And that's where the opportunity, I think, is. If you've got some of that asset already, land value, well, know what land value is doing. It is so hard to find any land out there that's anywhere close to the $100 an acre, in the hundreds of dollars an acre. It's in the thousands of dollars an acre, and when you try to back that off, I mean, you can do it in today's dollars, but if we were looking at, even 2-3 years ago, our land rents that we were paying and needing to pay for land in the operations, wasn't there. So how do you spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 an acre for some of this land if history has taught us that we can't pay for that? Now that's what the challenge is, not knowing that this profitability is going to be there next year, year after, the year after that. So those are the biggest challenges. How much do we invest? And we're seeing the hesitation by producers by not seeing, everything's indicating we should be expanding like crazy, but that hesitation is there.
Let's stick with you, Ben. We'll go on to the next question. So we want to talk about what external factors are affecting on-farm profitability. So in the world of beef, what's the outlook for 2026, and what is influencing that outlook?
Oh man, those are loaded questions.
Yeah, you bet.
An idea of what is affecting our industries right now. Trade right now is number one. Tariffs, along with that, some real uncertainty. We have the horrible experience of BSE in the back of our minds all the time, and we know what can happen when trade shuts down. Our value of product falls apart, and we have that fear that it could happen again, and that's always there.
Well, just on that, what are some of the trade and tariff issues on the cattle side? I'm not as familiar with it as I probably should be.
Well, trade has changed tremendously over the years. We used to be a net importer or exporter. Cattle go back and forth depending, where the feed opportunity is. And at times we have the advantage of feeding cattle here, and we import cattle from the U.S. And at other times we export more because the feed opportunity is down there. Right now we're seeing some tremendous opportunities here, and we're bringing in some cattle from more cattle from the U.S. and bringing it back. We have that free trade. If that's at risk, all this gets really hard to predict what could happen to our industry. And luckily we still have the slaughter capacity here to take care of it. We could feed our own animals, that's all fine. But if our finished product can't go to this closest market, which is the US, now we have extra costs in trying to get that market to other areas that now has increased freight costs. So those are some of the high-end top issues.
Yeah, that CUSMA renegotiation. that CUSMA renegotiation will affect all of us, for sure. Okay, Kelsey, same question to you. What external factors are affecting your on-farm profitability?
Yeah, same as Ben. Politics is probably number one right now in the forefront of everybody's mind, but I mean, weather's the oldest one that we have, and that's the one that I think we're concerned about most days of the year. So I think just trying to do our best to mitigate whatever we can against that.
Yeah, and we'll dig into that a bit more with you, Kelsey. So with regard to weather, in year 15, was it 15 growing seasons? Have you noticed any changing trends weather-wise?
I started farming in 2011, and I imagine most people in this room remember 2011 as a very hard year. It was wet. I think we planted 100 acres of wheat that year or something, and it was crop insurance. But and then so the first 5 years of me farming, it was just wet, and that's kind of what started my entry into the tile and water retention and irrigation world.
Yeah. So, anything we should do about this, Mike? Good? Okay. All right, Fiona. Same question. What external factors are affecting you? You guys still remember it? Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna echo some of what Ben and Kelsey had said already, with geopolitics being definitely top of mind, and it seems like lots of countries are moving towards a more protectionist policy, which is really not good for Canadian agriculture because we really rely on exports and being able to do business around the world, and so that side of things that's not so great for us.
Is there anything we can do about that? I should say, is there anything you as a farmer can do to insulate your business against geopolitical?
Yeah, there is actually. What everybody can do is buy a membership for the Western Canadian Wheat Growers Association. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding, but I'm kidding a little bit.
Or you could become a director for Manitoba Canola Growers.
Yeah, or that. Or I think, it's tough because, on your farm, it's hard to know what to do about that. It really is. So, and a lot of that does feel a little bit out of your control. So honestly, all I do is try to stay a little bit involved in the greater ag industry, and then at the end of the day, all we can do is just try and grow the biggest crop that we can. So that doesn't really answer that question. I don't have the answer, but yeah.
That's right. Nobody does. Jay, what's affecting? What's the outside factors affecting your profitability?
Well, some of the outside things I think that I've seen is the volatility by social media and tweets with the geopolitical stuff. Like, I don't remember, like, beyond the last 4 or 5 years where markets would change so dramatically by such small influences and things like tweets from our neighboring president, or a theory on what's going to happen with tomorrow's weather. Things are so fast and happening so quickly. It's like I feel that we all have to be really a lot more aware of what's happening and respond quicker, because one day we can lose $30 a ton and be out of our profit range just because we missed something or couldn't foresee something. So information is definitely, and the speed of it and the volatility of markets that it creates is definitely can affect your profitability very quickly.
Well, we'll get into marketing, I'm sure, because that's such a key part of profitability. So how do you shield yourself? Or like you talked about the $30 swings or whatever. I mean, do you have a strategy to capture those things or protect yourself from markets going the opposite direction?
Well, I mean, specifically for me, like what Fiona kind of was alluding to there is get involved. I found that for the last 3 years I got involved in the Manitoba Canola Growers, and then the people that I've met and the things that I get privy to and the information has really been helpful, and not just for me as an individual, but also the people that take the time to make a phone call and ask what's going on. And I think though that communication that's happening now and getting involved, I think more people have to do that, and that's going to give us that education, and that it might give us the ability to kind of weather the storm, I guess, in those volatile times, I guess.
Are you in a marketing club? I had a or whatever you might call it, a group. I was at it was called Canola Week in Saskatoon in the first week of December, and we had an agronomy panel. We were talking about canola agronomy, and one of the topics was, or one of the suggestions was that if you've got an agronomist, or if you've got a group of, I guess, like-minded farmers, form a group and you can trial different products. You could try something on your farm, and Ben could try something on his farm, and then you could compare notes. I mean, the same could happen for marketing. I know there's clubs or groups out there. Is that helpful? Are you part of that?
I'm not part of that type of marketing idea, but the people that I work with, and specifically MNP, have these structures in place. They're focus groups, and I haven't participated in them yet, but I'm really interested in it and learning, because I think that's how we're going to get more information and become better and more profitable. Is just by learning. It's just by going down to a different part of Manitoba, for instance, and understanding how they're doing something, and then throwing ideas at them, and then simple communication, and then getting to a big part of what I think profitability comes from is the relationships that we create.
Yeah. So you and I chatted a couple days ago about that exact topic, the relationships. So what are the relationships that are important to you, Jay?
Well, they're all important. I think just developing them and realizing how important that they are, and that stems from your on-farm, team as your off-farm team. It's like you're building a team, and that team it's going to have wins and losses, and that to me is those relationships that you're creating on a daily, weekly, yearly basis, and that extend past decades. Are going to help you become profitable.
And when you come to an event like Ag Days, are you seeking new business relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. I met a gentleman up there this morning. He's from Redbird, Saskatchewan, and we had a great talk. And just talking to him, he expressed how he learned last Ag Days or Ag Days in the past about putting your wheat in really early, and that would help your yield and your yielding potential. And he said that was how he developed his that he started gaining more bushels, because he was getting out there, and as soon as those snowbanks were gone, he was seeding. And he learned that from involvement in these days, and participating, and trying things, and being optimistic.
Well, I know in the world of canola, and I'm not going to talk about canola the whole time, don't worry. But I mean, there used to be, or I shouldn't say used to be, but before flea beetles got really bad, we were seeding earlier, and that was often the recommendation for higher yields, is the earlier seeded crop, and maybe around here first week or second week of May is early. But I just wondered if what was I going to say? So there's practices. So you picked up the ultra early wheat, and I just wondered if there was other practices that you've adopted that have increased your profitability through relationships and that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, if it's from a relationship basis, it's like I actually learned that with another director at Crop Connect. There was a panel. It wasn't a panel. It was more like an instructional. It was basically just a speaker, but he was a financier, and he discussed, and he was really passionate about relationships, and I resonated with that.
Huh.
And so once again, that relationship is really made me focus on how valuable they are, whether it's your retailer, whether it's your agronomist, or whether it's your accountant, or whether it's your spouse, or your sons, or your father. right? All those relationships can be really important to that profitability because, you know, you're building that team. And as much as we want to be the participant and the player, we're not. We're the general manager of this team, and we have to put these people in place and create that team, I guess. And that's what I enjoy doing, and I've really put a lot of value in that.
Yeah. Well, we could have a whole podcast talking about the importance of family communications and profitability.
And I wouldn't be able to lead you in the right direction there because I fail at that miserably, I think.
Well, I mean, it's kind of big of you to admit that, but I mean, I think all of us are challenged with good, clear family communications.
Well, I'm fortunate because they're very, what would you say, patient with me.
Right on. Right, which counts for so much. Anybody want to jump in on the relationships? Are relationships important to your business, Ben? From a profitability perspective? Oh yeah, Mike. Yeah, let's do that.
Absolutely. There's many different ways you could go about doing this. I mean, succession planning. You need to have that all set up as well. Marketing. You brought up marketing. I mean, there's so many options and different ways to look at marketing cattle. There is, opportunity to have these groups to get different ideas from. So we can all learn from each other, and I think that's awesome. Every aspect of a farm and business management, having these relationships in different aspects will definitely help out an operation.
So with putting your Manitoba government hat on, do you help coordinate marketing groups or getting farmers together to talk about whatever challenges they might have to profitability?
Again, I'm going to speak on behalf of the cattle industry, and that's my focus. And grain's been pretty good at marketing. They've got all kinds of contracts and options. Livestock is a little bit behind the eight ball when it comes to different options. Sure, we can retain animals, we can direct market to backgrounders, to feedlots, we can retain ownership all the way to finishing. So we do have options, but again, just looking and talking to other people about what they're doing and just learning from them is an opportunity to increase your own awareness and your own knowledge on how to make more money.
Do you have a takeaway for people in the audience, when it comes to beef profitability and clubs? Is there any way that farmers could reach out if they're interested in something like that?
Well, I'm going to bring up something you haven't brought up yet, and that's risk management. Right now in the beef industry, I would be looking at all aspects of risk management. How do we lock in this profitability? Looking at livestock price insurance, make sure on day one on that calf premium when it comes out February 1st to lock in those values if you feel it's a decent price. Stability, I'm a big fan and helped many people try to understand the program. That will help you when it comes to deciding if that program is right for you or not. But I'm a big fan of looking at all the risk management programs when we are at the high. These are the times to be ready for when it does come back down, if it does, that we have some of these programs to back us up.
So I want to get into more of that, Ben. It's not right now, but we want to talk about beef and taking short-term gains, but also managing for the long-term future. And how do you achieve both? But we're going to Fiona. I'm going to go to you about so some of the things that your farm is doing specifically to enhance profitability. Are there practices that you're doing that have really worked for you that you think other farmers might consider?
Yeah. So. I don't know if anything that we are doing is that earth-shattering, but we're trying to just really hone in and get a better understanding of exactly what's going on the farm and trying to get a sense of some predictability. And so doing that by really collecting the information of what happens every year, whether that be what price we're paying for our inputs, what we're selling our crop for, what the yields are, and knowing our numbers for the cost of production and what we're making and what our profits are, and then just tracking that over the years and using that to help us understand, okay, what's happening now? Is this a good price? Is this gonna work for us? And doing a lot more planning. So I'll share a little story. My dad and I were talking grain marketing, and my nephew was there with us, and he's about to turn 5 in February. And he just really likes to get in on the conversation, even though I don't know if he knows what's going on. But he proved that he seems to be picking up some things, because we were talking about grain marketing, and he said, Opa, you know what you should say? And my dad said, okay, what, Felix, what should I say? He said, well, you can either get grumpy or you can stick to the plan. And he just giggled about that.
Is that something you or your dad would say?
I mean, yeah, it is what we would say. You know, anytime we veer off the plan and we look back and we think, why did we do that?
That's interesting. So how do you come to the plan? Like, what is it a family meeting in January, or what's the process?
The process is just, it's just our morning discussions, our regular morning. There's not, maybe we probably should formalize it. It's not formalized, but just maybe a discussion over breakfast or lunch, and looking at reviewing what happened the past years, and then showing what the trend lines are for everything, and then, okay, this is where we're at now. These are, really it comes down to honestly knowing your cost of productions, and then making a plan from there and saying, okay, this is what we're gonna do. This is what has happened in the past, and because of that, this is what we're doing this year.
You're often growing the same 4 crops.
Yeah, so we're
in similar proportions.
Yeah.
So how are you adjusting?
So yeah, I guess that is something that we've kind of really honed in on. We grow wheat, oats, canola, and soybeans. And so we've just decided, okay, we're gonna learn how to produce these crops as best as we can. We're not going out and trying to make $500 an acre profit by growing sunflowers one year when we don't really know anything about growing sunflowers and are just trying to capitalize on, ooh, if there's some exciting pricing. So we're really just trying to hone in on what we know, and try and get an understanding of how those crops work on our land. They also work really well because we can use the same equipment for all of those crops, so that really cuts down on cost, and then again taking out just working in some predictability in the plan. So if we're always growing a quarter of the farm in each of those 4 crops, what I've seen over the past is every year is different, and no one can predict which crop is going to be the winner. There's one of them is going to be the winner, and there's going to be a couple that are in the middle, and one that's going to be the loser. But you're never going to be able to pick the winner. This is kind of what I said before. I'm done with trying to shoot for a home run, because I always just get disappointed. My dad has been saying this a lot. He's just like, we're just getting on base. I'm like, yes, just going to try and get on base. So, and this is just what works for our farms. Might be other people out there thinking, Fiona, you got it all wrong. And yeah, maybe I do, because this might not be what you should be doing on your farm. Maybe what works for you is getting all into some specialized crops and going for the top dollar, but
I'm going to put you on the spot. So when you think about, and you can pick the crop, because it sounds like a fairly standard practice, right? You've got your 4 crops, you stick with them, you want to learn how to do them. Is there something you're doing that your neighbors aren't doing that could be a difference maker for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I think one of the big things that has worked for us kind of ties into what Jay was saying with relationship building. And this is something my dad did, I can't remember how many years ago, over 20 years ago, I think. He started a joint venture with his brother-in-law, and it was basically what they did was they realized, wow, we're just struggling away trying to get things to work on our farms, and realized that if they just pooled their resources, they could get so much more accomplished instead of having to try and fight to get that extra hired person in the summer, or having so many different pieces of machinery. They could just consolidate and get a larger machine that maybe was going to give them access to better technology. And so yes, the relationship building, kind of, that also ties into like right sizing the farm, making sure we're taking on acres that we can handle and produce on well, and then ensuring we have that strong relationship with my cousin and my uncle so that we can continue to work together, because that has been the game changer for us, for sure, is having those shared human resources and shared capital resources.
Right on. Thanks, Fiona. All right, Kelsey, we're going to jump to some of the projects that you're working on to improve your on-farm profitability, because it's something that you know, a lot of other agriculture areas within the world are doing a lot of irrigation. Southern Ontario has tile almost everywhere. We haven't really adopted either of those in a big way in Manitoba, and you're doing both of those. Can you describe what you're doing?
Yeah, to make a long story short, basically we're target tiling flood-prone areas, and we're in a special area where we can't send any water downstream, so that, you know, kind of forced us to adapt and innovate, and we turned to water retention. And so we put in lift stations, ran the tile to the lift stations. Lift stations put the water into the irrigation infrastructure that is there and takes it to our reservoirs where we hold it. And then if it's July or August and the crop looks like it needs a shot of water, we put it on.
Pivots? Or what are you irrigating with?
Yeah, so earlier when I said we started in 2011, by 2014 was another very wet year, and it just seemed like, you know, when's this going to end? So we had, you know, hundreds of acres underwater, and the potholey area that we're in, the water wasn't going anywhere. It had to evaporate. So I got looking online, and I found a traveling gun, an irrigation traveling gun. So you put one end into the slough or the wetland or the flooded area, and pump it out, and then you pull your gun out into the field, and you let it irrigate the crop as it pulls itself back in. So we started with that. I think it did about 12 acres at a time, and then it was just a make work project the way we had it set up. You know, we were trying to go around flooded areas, and it took a long time and a lot of work to do that. So we decided to go to center pivots.
Okay. And if someone's going to take this leap, is center pivots the way to go, or is there some scenarios where that traveling gun would work?
Yeah, you know, in ways that I still wish we had the traveling gun for certain little niche areas. They have their place. I mean, I'm sure people have looked into sub-irrigation. You know, that's kind of where we started looking into, you know, can we utilize the tile in order to put water back into that crop's root zone? And just with our topography of our land, that wasn't very doable. So we just kind of went with overhead center pivots, and that's the route we took. But yeah, I mean, every form of irrigation has its use, but probably that would be a good place to start.
And are you growing different crops now because of this?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. I think about corn probably every day or every other day, because I know how well it would do under the pivot, but I'm a little like Fiona. I'd rather specialize in the crops I know how to grow than create more risk for myself, you know, as of now. I'm not saying we won't go there in the future, but we've found great crop yields on certain crops. Some have been big wins, some haven't. We haven't noticed any yield bump. I don't know if that's the year, the submoisture. It's just, yeah. I mean, soybeans seem to do well, so we kind of put all our eggs into that basket as far as irrigation goes.
You said targeted tile, and what land do you tile? What does it look like? What's the topography?
Yeah, so we're, you know, just to do rough numbers, like on a half section, close to home, you know, you might see a 15-foot difference between, you know, your knolls and your low areas. So I never seen the direct value in tiling most of our side hills and the tops of those knolls. We were just going after these flood-prone areas that had given us a lot of trouble in the past, and you know, those areas we typically seeded, but then we ran into a string of wet years, and yeah, we wanted to reclaim those areas and get them back into production and keep them in production. Yeah.
Anybody have a question for each other? Anybody want to ask someone about Ben about cattle, or Kelsey about drainage?
In the meantime, I'll ask you about salinity. You're doing the bottoms of the knolls, which is pretty cool. Did you see a drop in salinity in those areas? Is that what's bringing up the yield, or is it just the lack of the crop suffering from excess moisture?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Anybody that farms in pothole area knows about the bathtub ring around the sloughs. So we noticed that early on, and we constantly tested our water. But yeah, to answer your question, we noticed a huge drop off in the salinity in those areas. As soon as we took tillage out of the equation in those areas, like we're zero till in those tiled areas now. And what I think is working the best is we never tiled those salinity areas at all. But what we did was we took away the water pressure from the low-lying areas that seeps up into that bathtub ring area. And I think by, you know, getting plant matter, organic matter growing in those areas and allowing these nice flushing rains that we've had the last couple of years in our area, that it's, you know, put them salts back down in the dirt. So that's been, you know, a benefit that we've noticed.
How big are your retaining ponds, if that's the right word, or reservoirs?
We started with, we were licensed to pump out of some of these wetland areas, class 3s and 4s. So we used that, and you know, to ballpark that one, it held roughly 50 acre feet. It was, you know, probably 10 acres big, 5 feet deep. And then once we decided we were going to center pivots, we constructed a small reservoir in our yard out of 2 old dugouts. So we made a 25 acre foot one there, and then from there we forget what year it was now, but 2022 or something, we overwhelmed our reservoirs. So we've got control structures in place that stop the water so that we can't overwhelm lift stations and stuff. But basically we just ended up with a flooded landscape again, more or less. We were able to get it out of there quicker this time around, but this last year we built a 160 acre foot reservoir. So what the long-term plan is to be able to capture those waters in wet years and carry the water forward for 2-3 years when it can be utilized. So trying to create a bank account of water, for lack of better words, that you can draw from and deposit into.
So we don't need to do a deep dive on cost right now, because this isn't necessarily a tile, drainage, and irrigation panel, but I've heard that tile is $1,500 an acre, irrigation is probably about the same, and I don't know how much, I mean, you're setting aside some acres for the reservoirs. So let's say you're $3,000 an acre. What's your timeline for ROI? Or like, your yields are going up, obviously. What have you penciled out a timeline?
Yeah, a little bit, obviously. So like I said, we're target tiling certain areas. So like certain quarters, halves. We don't have any single field that we've tiled corner to corner. You know, one quarter we might do 40 acres, and the other one might be 25 or something. So we've targeted those worst areas. All of our water slopes to those areas. So I like to think that we've strategically placed that tile in that area, so that you know, so the whole quarter or half or whatever you're farming is you know, good every year. So
What? Yeah.
Yeah, well, to finish answering the question, I guess.
The big thought, yeah.
Yeah, so the turnaround on the tile has been quite quick. And the turnaround on the irrigation has been a little bit slower. It was an answer to a question that we had trouble solving. You know, what do we do with all this water? The first 5 years, I think, when we started with a single pivot, the return was quite quite good, but eventually we ran out of water. We have no off-stream water to draw from. So, you know, I ended up buying another pivot that year, and so the turnaround on the second pivot is going to take a little bit longer. But I think if you use Les Henry's view on irrigation, if you let the first one pay for itself and then continue on from there, it shouldn't get into too much trouble.
Anybody have a question about irrigation? Anybody up there have a question? None yet? So, Kelsey, just one last thought on that, and we may come back to it. But for someone thinking about a project like that, what's the first step? Is it bank financing, or is it local permits, or maybe it's all of that? What's the process?
Yeah, I think most farmers understand what kind of return they'd be looking at and what they'd be saving for that process. Put enough thought into it that it makes sense for your farm. That means designing it. There's so many things that I wish I could go back and redo, but just put that thought into it. Think long term on that sort of a project, because that's what it is. It's a lifetime project. It's not I never expected it to pay for itself in a short period of time, and we're going to continue going forward with it. But
yeah. So, any the other panelists, when you think about long-term steps to improve all farm profitability in Manitoba, does tile drainage and irrigation rise to the top of the list, or what do you think we need to do in the province to help farmers achieve more consistent, better profitability in the long term? Jay, you want to take a stab at that one? Everyone can jump in.
I think that the last question you had there, and thanks for sharing the irrigation stuff, or the pivot stuff, because that's really interesting to somebody like me that we have water problems in some senses, and I wonder, my mind goes to thinking, well, maybe we can utilize the collection points of water and use them. So I might talk to you a little bit about that after, but I guess doing something like that would be, I guess, I actually don't really remember what I'm supposed to answer here.
No, just about.
I'm thinking about irrigation.
Well, our heads have a lot of things going on inside them. I'm just wondering about in the province and a strategy to improve all farm profitability. Are there things that we can do policy-wise, or just as farmers? And I'm just wondering, like, is irrigation and tile drainage something that in 25 years from now every farm in Manitoba has adopted? Is it that valuable potentially?
Well, I think it is, and I'm going to be specific about our farm and what we did. My dad was pretty. I would say he was forward thinking at one point, like 25 years ago, about zero till or minimal till, and it was, I think in the area it was, and I think you're involved in that too, and I saw the long-term benefits of something so that I had no idea when I was young, and now based on what we're seeing from doing that, and it's area specific. I don't think every area is good for that, but that's just an example of a generational forward thinking idea that has yielded my farm and our farm, is just by taking those concepts and believing in them and listening to people that know a little bit more about it than you. Having having an agronomist, in my ear, so to speak. I'm always throwing things at them and giving them ideas, but they sure bring you back to reality fairly quickly, which is such a benefit and such a good thing, because we can get spun into things that aren't necessarily going to yield us a long-term benefit. But listening to those people who have that experience and that deal with a lot of other farms and a lot of in a specific area are so valuable. And it goes back to the relationship thing, but it also goes to a point where you have to be humble enough to listen. And I've been pretty stubborn at times where I want this to work and I've spent the money on it, but sometimes you have to let things go that you've tried and that weren't working. But long-term projects that might not see a yield, like the pivot and irrigation, I think those are the types of things that are going to manage our profitability, and it's going to refine our farms into a more, I guess, and we have to learn from each other. And when I say refine as well, these challenging times with marketing, or not necessarily marketing, but lower prices in our commodities, but yet higher prices in inputs and machinery and labor. It just makes us stronger. We're better. We have to get into the details of every cost. I think it was 2 days ago, somebody, I gave them a cost, it was my banker, I'll just be straight, and he said, well, what's the cost per acre of you to run an auger? And I was stumped, and then there was another question, how many openers do you use a year? All these little details that are contributing to the cost of my production were things I never thought about. I've never costed out per acre on a grain loading auger, right? And I'm sure in the cattle industry there's things like that people bring up, and you're like, well, you know what? But now when an auger can be $75,000, we have to look at that as a cost and refine it and get better at it. So yeah, that's my long-winded answer there.
I want to come back to inputs in a bit, because we need to at least chat about that for 10 minutes. But Ben, I want you to talk about the question I had for you earlier, just about from the cattle perspective, taking advantage of short-term profit opportunities, but also planning for the long term. Is there any, or what advice do you give on how to capture both of those?
Yeah, that's tough. Short-term profit and long-term gains when you're at the peak. That's a tough one. But diversification, I think, is an answer to some of that. We can utilize equipment, infrastructure twice. A lot of these regen ag discussions about increasing soil health, include cattle, and you can have now grain land getting that cash crop, and you're also getting grazing acres and benefit in the soil for next year's crop. So there are things like that can have long-term as well as short-term gains if you incorporate cattle, because we're so profitable. But how do you get in at the highs? That's the next question. That's tough. I'm sure you can work with your neighbor and do things like that. There are arrangements that can be made that way. But those are some of the things that are being kicked about nowadays.
I mean, and then I'm going to assume the answer is no, but do you have anyone who's just decided these prices are too good, I'm going to sell everything? I'm going to sell all my calves, all my cows, get right out of it, and then I'll jump back in when the opportunity presents.
Yeah, if anyone was thinking now is the time to do that. The problem is a taxman would love to hear that, right? Because we already have a tax problem with the calf crop. Imagine the tax problem you're going to have when you sell those cows. So that's the issues we have. Most producers out there are sole proprietors and aren't set up for that amount of profitability. So we have to think that through. But now is the time. If you're looking at retirement, get out on the highs, not the lows, and that's an opportunity. But that's a challenge we have in the industry. Our age producers is up there. It's 50, 60 years old. So absolutely, I've heard of that, and that is happening.
Yeah.
But the tax issue, if you haven't thought that through, is one of the biggest challenges you have to overcome.
Right, so when it comes to Jay and his relationships, I mean, in that scenario, you want to make sure you have a good, strong accounting background or someone who can help walk you through that.
Absolutely, that's key. And talk about a corporation or whatever it is for strategy to look at that. But having that option for some of these guys that don't have someone to take over or whatever the case is, being a sole proprietor, having a high value calf as well as a cow sale is a disaster is a recipe for a very high tax bill.
What's one of the more interesting things or strategies you've heard over the past few months in this cattle pricing situation? Like, has someone done something you think, yes, that's an excellent idea, we should talk more about that?
There's all kinds of excitement in the cattle industry, but when it comes to business management and the structure of business, I think utilizing a farm partnership, rolling over that farm partnership into a corporation, and utilizing capital gains on cattle is something I think everyone should look at. If that's something they're looking at doing, I think that's something most of us realize isn't normally something that can happen. The reason it happens is because it's farm family partnership shares that roll over, and that's what's giving you that capital gain. So that is interesting.
Can you say that one more time, Ben?
So if you are looking at selling a calf crop and a cow crop, with our tax rate, you're going to be at the 42-50% tax rate on those cows because you made so much profit on those calves. So pretty much you're paying 50% dollars to taxes on those cows. Now, if you're incorporated, you don't be paying 10%. If you're under that small business tax rate at 10%, and that's if you're under the $500,000 net. So what you do is you create a family partnership, you roll over the family partnership into the corporation, and that gives you that capital gain exemption on the value of those cows. So now you have shareholder loan, which you can pull back. These are all different options. Talk to your accountant, lawyers. It does get a little bit complex, and you have to do things right. But those are quite interesting, some of those structures that you can create.
Kelsey, Fiona, Jay, have you thought about getting into cattle? Is this a good time? You answered.
No.
Why? Yeah, a little too expensive to jump in right now. Well, for someone selling cows, someone's got to be buying them. Why isn't it you?
I already told you, I grow wheat, canola, oats, and soybeans.
Right, yeah.
Cattle doesn't fit in that mix.
Jay, you've got some cattle land up there, don't you? Russell?
Yeah, we used to be in cattle, and we had an unfortunate experience in 2008, right before BSE ended, and our facility got burned down with a big wind and whatever, so we never got back into it. But we talk about it a lot, getting back into it, but we focused on grain. Our whole family has, we loved, I remember liking cattle, but I had an experience where I bought some cow. I even bought a few cows for our, just to feed for the year, and they were expensive. I bought them from another individual, and and I don't know if this reigns true with you and how you feel about this, but I have the worst luck with livestock. Before I even got the 3 animals home, one had perished. And I don't know if that was a sign or not. So I would love to. I want my kids to enjoy that, the livestock part of the farm. I think that's, if you've never been in it, it's something that's really valuable for growing a family as well. So when I'm listening to and I'm seeing the cattle industry succeeding right now. I mean, a lot of producers around our area, and watching that, and I'm thumbs up all the way. But I'm interested in that question. It's like, is there one thing that people are doing right now is there anybody getting into it? I would love to an answer to that and see, like, if they are, what are they doing, right? Because that's a question.
Yeah, let's try that. Ben, you got an answer?
I don't think there's just one answer. We do have a lot of younger producers looking at expansion, but with that, they're giving up, whether they're raising their own heifers or buying in, they're giving up the cost of that animal coming in as a cost, or they're giving up the income of that heifer now as a replacement going in. So there is a real cost to expanding. And if it goes down in a year or two, and we saw this in 2014-15, and that high didn't last very long. And I worked with a lot of family farm guys that just got into it, 25 head. In 2014, they bought $3,000 cows, and within 3 years, they couldn't make payments anymore. So those are the real things that are facing producers. If you're buying these cows in at $5,000, $5,500, $6,000, like these numbers aren't stopping. If these values aren't there, like we need $329 to break even. You look in history, past 10 years, we weren't there that often. So if we're buying, and that's at $2,500, $3,000 cows, not at $6,000 cows. So that's the real challenge, is how do we do this sustainably? And we just don't know where this is going. Sure, the supply-demand fundamentals tell us it should stay here, but with the chaos in markets and world dynamics, we don't know if it's going to. And if we just knew that we were going to have these high-priced calves for even 2-3 years, we would see a lot quicker expansion. Yeah. We are still seeing pasture, bushland being pushed and put into grainland, and we should be seeing the opposite. We should be seeing grainland putting down to forage because of the return. We're getting $400 an acre profit on cowland, and we're not seeing that in grainland. If you look at some of the budgets, again, you have to take those with a grain of salt and make sure they're your own values. But with the price and the inputs right now, the grain cost of production doesn't look that great. Again, everyone has to do their own, but that's the challenge right now, is how can you take advantage of both industries and be ahead? Risk management, acre stability has taught us that it's not good for you to diversify, because when one does good, it offsets the other. So there's a challenge there when it comes to some of the programming. But sure, when you're on your own farm, just looking at the operation, absolutely you're better off in a diversified farm, utilizing that equipment twice, utilizing that land twice. Now, not only utilizing land twice, you're now feeding byproducts like straw and things like that. And this snowball keeps building and building, and you can see a lot of profitability come off operations that have intensified that diversification.
Can you explain to me how you're using the land twice? So you're growing a grain crop and then winter grazing, or what? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a concept of getting a cash crop and then getting some other benefit, whether it's end benefit for the next crop, or grazing acres, or feed acres, or whatever it is. Or even, it doesn't even have to be seeded. It could just be, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but if it's climate change or what it is, or if it's the timely rain, but the amount of regrowth that's happening in some of these fields after harvest is insane. And how much of that is being grazed? Very little. Now, if you're diversified, absolutely, you see that as an opportunity, and you graze it. So those are the things that you can benefit from. And by doing that, you get some microbiological activity, and you increase soil health. You get it just goes round and round and round. And a lot of it is working in favor of sustainability as well as profitability.
You talked earlier, Ben, about risk management and the livestock price insurance. So if you bought a herd of cows now, could you lock in today's price for those calves 9-10 months? Well, not 9. They're born 9 months from now. Yeah, so whenever you get around to marketing them, can you lock in the price?
Well, if you bought bred cows, in theory you could calve them out next month. We don't, in the livestock industry and cattle industry, we don't have a production insurance like crop. So that's a disadvantage. We do have production insurance when it comes to producing feed. That's good. But what we have is livestock price insurance. So we can guarantee that price. I don't know where it is today. It starts February 1st. Yeah, okay. And right now the LPI policies for backgrounders is around $4.30, $4.35 hundredweight. So $4.35 hundredweight. Last year I bought all of my policy on February 1st at $4 a hundredweight, and I thought I was doing great. I settled at $6.30, $2.30 out. But man, was I comfortable the rest of the year knowing I was going to for sure get $4 a calf. I encourage everyone to look at price insurance February 1st and look at seeing if that is an option for you to buy. Whether it's $4.50, $5, at $5 a calf, if it's 6-weight calf that you're selling, that's $3,000. If your cost to produce that calf is $1,600, $1,800, you can see that profitability. Sure, it's probably going to cost you $100 for that policy, but you're guaranteeing $1,000 profit per cow. Again, I would definitely look at that.
Any questions? We're going to jump to inputs now. We'll close with a conversation about inputs. As I'm just going to go back to Darren Bond's estimates. So I said earlier, this is all in. It includes like long-term fixed costs. Okay, so what is it? So canola, the outlook is, where is this bottom line price here? Here it is. Marginal returns for canola. So that's the over operating costs, total cost. Okay, so net profit, minus $28.74. Soybeans is plus $2.11, and let's just do hard red spring wheat. We're not going to do them all. So hard red spring wheat is minus $72.96. Again, these are really general. It's not going to apply to every farm, but assuming that's somewhere close to an average, that means a lot of farmers are going to be in a potential loss scenario this year. So how do we manage crop inputs to take away the pain? And I mean, and sometimes losing money is still the best management, because if you do nothing, you're losing even more because your fixed costs are locked in. So what do we, Jay? What do you kick us off here because you're nodding? What are the ways that you manage your inputs in a way that protects as much profit as possible, or keeps it as not as bad as it could have been?
Well, I mean, I wish I would have done more of this, but one successful story I feel that wasn't my idea. It was once again my agronomist's idea. We were looking back, and don't quote me on these numbers specifically. It's more what I'm trying to explain is was phosphate like 4 or 5 years ago when it was $600 a ton, or it was really affordable. It was suggested that let's top up. Let's make sure that we can put in, like, phos isn't going to move, and it's going to stay in the ground. It's going to be valuable. It's not going to leach away. It was something, and I didn't really understand it then. I kind of thought, well, hey, okay, I'm going to listen to you full-heartedly, and we're going to do it. And I think we went hard, and it took a lot of time, because putting more product down takes more time. We're a one-pass system. But we did it. It cost us. It cost me a significant amount of money. But not only were we trying to, get our nutrition or our nutrients up and to obtain higher yields. It was making sure we weren't mining it. But on the flip side, what happened was we put enough down that year to almost, the price then jumped up to $1,100 or $1,200 a ton. Very in short order. It climbed gradually over the few years, but what we had done is we had established a bank account of phosphate. Now, that takes capital, that takes us putting, money into it, but, and I think it was a windfall of luck in some senses, but I would love to have that price again, so that I could do that and invest into that dirt like I would be with the cattle, because the year that it went up like that, I didn't, we soil test very a lot, so we didn't have to address the phosphate was there. We used it as a bank account, and that helped our profitability that year substantially, and when we weren't paying for that extra phos. And I love that theory. I mean, it's hard to do sometimes, but it does pay off some, especially with phos, I think.
Your banker who asked you about the price of an auger per acre, would that banker also give you an operating loan if you put down 5 years worth of phosphorus in 1 year? Like, can you get money for that?
I'm not very good at convincing bankers of anything, so in that sense, I'd say no. But if I showed him results, right? If I showed him how that saved, I think they're logical people. They're there to help. Well, in my experience, they're there to help us succeed. So if they're giving me, maybe unsecured credit for phos, let's say, banking on that, the price going up, I mean, I'm securing their position as well,
Yeah.
right? I'm giving them more security, that I'm forward thinking enough that this could benefit me if margins do decrease, which they did in that sense because of FOSS, right? So yeah, I don't know, convincing, I think it's just the proof's in the pudding kind of thing. If you've done it once and it's succeeded, try again and you know, and learn from how you can get better at that, and talk about these things. Like I don't know if that would work for everybody, maybe on a section or 400 acres, right? But it's profitability on that acre is going to be more if you treat FOSS as a bank account.
Fiona, does the minus 70 whatever for wheat, minus 28 for canola, and plus 2 for soybeans, does that sound like your numbers going into 2026?
No, but maybe I'm just too optimistic.
And what are you doing on your farm to, be better than average in terms of input, ROI for inputs?
So we've looked at when we are purchasing inputs over the years, and they're like any market, they're cyclical in nature, and so we usually try to buy our big ticket items like fertilizer ahead of time, so in the summer for the following growing season, and that has worked out very well for us to achieve a decent price. Another thing that does is purchasing the inputs ahead of time is you really know what your cost of production is going to be for the following year way ahead of time, and then you can hone in on your marketing plan as well, so it helps with that. So that's what we've done. And then just other things like trying to manage your interest rate risk, and like inputs are a huge part of cost for sure, but the fixed costs also play a big role in profitability. So you got to think about that, and I find with the variable costs, there's some wiggle room there, but if you don't hit the jackpot like Jay here and put a bunch of FOSS down when it's $600, then you got to start looking at other ways. And sometimes if you play around with the variable costs too much, you do have to remember that's going to have an impact on your yield. And whenever I look at things, the biggest impact to your profitability for a grain farmer is your yield and the price that you're selling for. By far, that's the fastest way you're going to make money. It's a lot harder to make money by just trying to cut back $1 at a time on your variable costs, especially if that could negatively impact your yields.
Are there things that you're doing, number of passes across the field in a year, or like penciling in inputs like, say, fungicide for sclerotinia canola, that you just know it's going to provide a return on investment? How do you make decisions like that? Just subtle tweaks to the inputs, because you're right, you're not going to cut costs to profitability usually, but there are certain costs that you might be able to trim.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like you rely on the relationships you've built, like chatting with the agronomist, and then chatting with the people on the farm, like my dad and my uncle, who have a lot of experience. And we look at what we've done in the past on the farm, and we know that for our farm in particular, we need to use fungicides that they most often pay, and we found new technologies like using growth regulators have worked really well on our farms. But again, every year is different, so we're out there scouting, and if the crop is really looking bad, like in 2021 I think that was, then maybe we're not going to spend the $1 on that. And that is very challenging. It is very challenging to look at a crop and think, okay, am I above crop insurance? What yield is this going to be? So I haven't quite figured out how to do that. We've been trying out some different weather stations and soil moisture probes to kind of help us assess yield, and I don't really have the answer.
How are you using the moisture probes or the sensors?
Just to watch you can use it to see where the roots are growing and how much water the crop is taking up, and use that to kind of estimate what your yield potential is.
Yeah.
And then you can decide if it's worth it to protect that yield or not.
Okay. And what in-season decisions would you make based on that?
Yeah, fungicide, top dressing, whether or not to use an extra, like we tried out this a biological this year on our canola to kind of to protect it from heat blast. Just, and then to trying to figure out how aggressive we are going to forward contract our crop as well.
Okay. We can talk more about that biological, but I want to go to Kelsey. Kelsey, on the input side of things, how do you manage inputs to improve profitability?
We've been doing variable rate for at least 10 years now. I think that's helped with our typical soils. Putting the fertilizer where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. Like Jay, I'm a big Dad did get me on this track that fertility is important, and it's like a bank account, and cutting some of those nutrients out of there to save a buck here or there isn't maybe the right way to go, but take advantage of when to put that fertility on and put it in the right place. So a year where inputs are quite expensive, we'll take a look at that crop's needs and maybe cut back on that potash or a little bit of phos or whatever if we think we can get away without any yield loss. So and then the next year, if it makes sense to put it on, then put it on. But yeah.
Well, the conversation so far is, and I'll do a little review shortly, but it sounds like there's no real hidden secret to profitability, or maybe I'm just not hearing you. So Ben, we'll come back to that. We'll get everybody a comment. But on the cattle side of things, are there inputs that, I mean, I guess it's a slightly different scenario this year where you've got quite good margins. But in an average year, are there input management recommendations that you make to improve profitability?
Well, it's a little different for sure. Our biggest cost on cattle operations, cow-calf, is feed. So taking a look at winter feed and how you can bring that down. A lot of the stuff I've done on our own farm, I can get that cost down as long as they're out, whether it's grazing corn or grazing a corn pile, corn silage pile, I can get that cost to about the same as cow grazing in the summertime. So we can get it to about $1.20 per head per day, whether it's cow grazing in the summer or a cow grazing in the winter. So that's the biggest impact you can have, and now is not the time to forget about some of those things, because this price, are going to maybe set at some point. So you still want to, retain as much profit as possible. You don't want to become inefficient just to not pay taxes.
Yeah, I was going to say that. That's a really good point. Yeah.
But that's one of the biggest things, is to take a look at the winter feed costs. That's the easiest one. But one thing I wanted to mention, and you mentioned yield price. There's also the cost equation. So if you can impact, and there's something called 5% rule of profitability. If you can impact each one of those variables by 5%, you can increase profitability by 200%. So those, when you combine different aspects, then you can increase profitability significantly.
Yeah. Let's just say your profitability is $20, or it's $10 per 100 units or whatever. And if you can, 200% increase is up to $30. So just a few little tweaks can greatly increase your profitability, which is me just repeating exactly what you just said.
But not just looking at yield or price or cost, you combine all three,
Yeah.
and then you can have the most significant impact.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I said I was hoping for some real deep, wow moments, but we talked about know your cost of production. We talked about building relationships, which can be essential just to getting the family unit working together, and also making better deals on input costs, on your marketing price. So we talked about market price being a key factor in profitability. Maybe we can dig into markets just a sec longer, but what do we got for time there? 2:20? Oh, so we got 7 to 10 minutes. Anybody want to jump in with a burning question? I'm not seeing any hands, but maybe I'm not seeing everybody. No? Okay, we're going to close. So like I said, so know your cost of production, basic. You've heard this a million times. The relationships, I think maybe we undervalue those connections and how they can help our profitability. I think that's a really good point. And so go check in with all the people that are really important to your operation, and take them for coffee or have a good heart-to-heart with them, and speak as positively as possible, but also address any issues you might have. It's good to talk through the challenging parts, not just the good parts. Okay, so crop planning, I guess, Fiona, you can stick with the same rotation, but there's still some planning involved this time of year to set the plan and then try to stick with the plan. There's marketing, and then there's, long-term augmentation of the land, like you're doing, Kelsey. Investing in the land, and there's lots of other ways to invest in the land. My sense is that maybe we don't use as much lime as we could on the prairies for those high acidity areas where the nutrient uptake isn't as good as it could be. And then there's, like you said, there's the drainage, there's the water storage, and there's possibly even irrigation. We didn't really talk about agronomy much. We talked about it a little bit, but we can leave that for later. So I want to capture one last thought, and then we'll wrap up. But is there anything missing on that list, or is there anything you'd really like to emphasize to the crowd here today? Ben, you've got the mic. We'll start with you. Anything missing? What's your closing point of emphasis?
I think we had a good discussion. I think know your cost of production. We have tools out there to help with that. That's key. Risk management for me, I think, is number one. We need to understand them. This is tax season now. Risk management, agri-stability is a big one. If you aren't having a discussion about what agri-stability is doing for you and your farm with your accountant, I don't think you're doing yourself a favor. You need to understand it, and maybe you're beyond having to ask them, but you do need to understand what's going on with that program. That's one of the things I've dealt with for years now, and that's a big thing I enjoy is helping people understand agri-stability. So I just want to leave with that.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Kelsey, what did we miss today? What should we have talked about that we didn't get a chance to?
Not sure if we missed a whole lot, but just focus on the factors that you can control. And I think as just people, we concern ourselves with everything else that's going on in the world, and we can't do anything about it. So focus on the things that we can do something about, whether it's a cattle operation, grain operation, or your family. Just focus on that and do the best with what you can.
Anything?
I think we ticked off a lot in there. Another thing that I might have mentioned would be even just the mental health aspect too. Like when you're in a positive mindset, you're always making better decisions. So I think that definitely plays a role in on-farm profitability.
No, I don't think there was anything I can say that we missed. I'm just going to go back to the relationship thing, and just if I had a closing thought, it would just be about just take a step back sometimes and think about the value in them. Like you said, they are undervalued sometimes, and there's a lot of people working for us as producers in the background, and I think acknowledging that and building that team is what's going to, is top of my list and should be top of people's lists. Wanting to be more profitable and better is, building that team that you're proud of and that's working for you. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. But anyways, thanks for this.
Yeah. I was at the Manitoba Canola Growers booth this morning, and a gentleman came up and had a chat with me, and I said, "Oh, I know so and so from your town," and he said, "Oh, I went to grade like all through school with this person, and I haven't talked to him in let's just say 20 years," and there was nothing that happened. They just kind of stopped talking for whatever reason, and I said, "Well, what if you just gave him a call tomorrow and said hi?" And I mean that isn't necessarily a business relationship, but I guess my point is that often if you're the one taking that first step to reconnect or connect or have a hard conversation, the result can often be very rewarding. It's often worth it. Anyway, I guess we're done. Thanks everybody for listening, and thanks to the four of you. Great stuff.
Thanks.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you to our excellent panel and sharing their knowledge today. Thank you to our moderator. We really appreciate it. And as a thank you, I'm so glad you mentioned it, Fiona, mental health. So in lieu of speaker gifts this year, a donation has been made in honor of each of our panelists and moderator to the Manitoba Farmer Wellness Program. So a big round of applause once again for our wonderful panelists. Thank you so much for your time and knowledge today. If you are pursuing CEU credits, I just want to remind you that at the top of the concourse, you can sign up. This session was worth 1.5 CEU credits for crop management. So please make sure if you are collecting those that you go and do so up there. We're going to move on to our next speaker and get everybody set up right for, is it now? Yeah, we got like 2 minutes. So if we want to shuffle around and get everybody in here, and we'll keep on rolling. Thank you so much, everybody.
Hot mic.